Hello guys, welcome back, and in this lesson we are going to consider event handlers. And so event handlers, they basically help you to listen to events that you are working with on your DOM. Let me say they help you to track the events, such as, for example, when you click a button, that is an event. When you release the key, that is an event. When you press a key, that is an event. So they basically help you to track the events in your DOM. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going just to delete this, and we can start here with something very simple. In this case, I can just start with a const. Let me say const counter for now. I'll just use a ref here, and I'll use a 0 for the value. So inside here, I'm going to use, let's use a button and say increase counter. So I want to increase the counter here, and I want when someone clicks this button, so you can use a V on, all right? You can use a V on, and then you can bind this to click. And then you can say when this happens, I want the counter to be increased. So one thing with the event handlers is that you can directly use the value or let me say the variables inside the event handlers. In this case, I can just pass the counter here and add that up or increment that. The other thing is, of course, I can be able to use a method here. So that is the first thing you need to know about the event. So what I can do here is down here I can have maybe, let's say, 11 h1, and then I can just print the counter here. All right, I need to move this on top here. I need to delete this template. I'm not using that. So I'll paste it inside this guy, and I'll just delete this. That should be okay. So that is it. And as you can see, when I click the counter, it increases the counter. So something else, of course, you can use a method here, and let's use a method here and say function increment for now. And inside here, and then I can just say that this function might return counter. And in this case, when I'm accessing, of course, the counter, I'm using a ref, I need to use the value, and then I can just simply do this. So instead of doing this here, I can simply now call the method increment, which will basically do the same thing. And I don't need to pass or to call it with with a rounded bracket in order to pass anything, or in order to make it be known as a function. The reason being is because when I call it like this, the on click will basically know that this is still a function. So when I click, as you can see, it adds this up. So instead, I can use maybe pass a value here and say that I will just return this value and maybe multiply by the value that will be passed here. All right, so I can just do this. So here I can pass maybe a value like 8. If I go here, that is 0, and maybe I can just change this to 4 now, so that we can have, all right, what am I doing? All right, so what I can just do here is, instead of returning this, I can just say multiply equals, which basically will take the counter and multiply the value. So I believe this should work. Yeah, you can see this works. So the other thing that you need to know about the event handlers is that you don't need to have this V on. There's a shorter form of that, which is basically at click, or you know, at any event that we wish. For example, I can say at submit, we have, that is when you're submitting a form, you can use at submit. So for now, let me just go back to at click, and if I go here, let me just do a refresh. So we go back, as you can see, this still will work. So something else is that you can be able to pass the event variable here. So I can just say event, and then I can be able to detect the event here like this. And then if I go back here, let's see. All right. But I think the event handler is not directly passed into the method, so I think we might have to call it like this here. So let's try and see if this will work. All right, that works. So I believe the event handler is not directly passed here, and you need to pass it like this to the method. Maybe just to, let me just try what we tried before. I believe when you pass it like this, let's try this and see if this will work. Let's try and pass it like a variable like this. Believe, yeah. All right, this also should work, yeah. So I think I had made a mistake here. This should be, should have the dollar sign there. And lastly, maybe just is also to let you know, as I've said, is that you can be able to earn those things like maybe key up and key down, all those things. So for example, now if I am pressing a key, if I leave it, you see the alert appears there. So if I press a key and then I leave it, that is key up. You can also use the key down, and then if I press a key and it calls the method. And also you can, instead of doing this event like this, you can directly tie the event modifiers to this method by maybe saying prevent, which is basically the prevent default, and then it will basically do the same thing. Yeah, so I don't need to do this. Yeah, so you can be able to do something like this, and you can also be able to, of course, use this same on the form. So guys, check out how to use event, and also try to do things like maybe you have a form, and inside maybe you have some input, and maybe this input as a value, and just try to play around and see how event handlers work. And that brings us to the end of this lesson, working with event handlers. Let us meet in the next lesson.